When you're at church and you're hosting a new service every 7 days in perpetuity, things can start to feel monotonous. So how do you mix it up? How do you inject new life into something that feels stale or predictable? Well, I think this is actually one of my church's strengths, and so I talked with my pastor about how we continually change things up within service, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to do the same thing at your church.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show to help you share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I am your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by Brady Shearer.
Got a DM from a person in Pro Church Nation this week, Alex. It says, "Hey Brady, our Sunday service has become so programmatic and predictable. What resources can we use to introduce or come up with a creative component to Sunday?"
Great question.
First thing I thought of was my church and one of my pastors, Justin. He oversees kind of like the production planning of services in particular, along with like everything else. But that's like one of the things he's particularly skilled at. So I sent out a text to him and I said, I know this is something that we've talked about. I know it's something you're always thinking about. How do we do it at Central? Like, what makes it unique? Like, why are we so good at this, at least in my opinion? And that's speaking from an outsider. Like, I don't work on those particular things. And so I'm observing what seems like excellence in this area from afar. And so he gave me basically 3 levels, like a short term, a medium term, and a long term.
Let me guess. The first suggestion was, let's do the message first and music last.
Yo, you know how many times I went to chapel in Bible college and they're like, we're mixing it up today.
Yeah, I know what you're doing. You're not mixing it up. You're just doing the inverse of what you normally do.
So I'm like,
and then we're going to switch it up again.
Second year student on the student council is so proud of himself. He's like,
Yeah. You're not going to guess what we're about to do.
are you ready for ministry to be changed forever? Don't need an altar call. We've been at this altar this whole time.
Oh, no.
It's not like that's a bad thing, but I don't know. There are better ways.
Yes.
Let's talk about the short-term ways of doing this, the anecdotal, essentially. Justin talked about these being one-off curveball pieces built around engagement with things that are already happening. So you can leverage an existing cultural current event.
Okay.
We did this to great effect, I think, last summer when this is happening or whenever it was, the mannequin challenge. So we're a church of a couple of thousand, and we did the mannequin challenge through the sanctuary in each service of, thousands of people, and they did it so well.
That's awesome.
Throw that camera on a Ronin, and we posted it on Facebook, and then it had massive engagement because, it was a huge cultural moment, and people had never seen, likely, one at this stage. 'Cause you do it with your friends, you do it with your family, but like this many people at church, different ethnicities, different ages. You got like 85-year-old grandmas like holding that pose for 2 minutes, like respect.
Yeah.
That's a one-off within a service that would make that service feel unique, and it leverages a current cultural moment. Maybe you could do this with the bottle cap challenge, which by the time you listen to this has already become obsolete.
Yeah, your pastor's just trying to kick a cap off a
That
bottle
would be
on the
hilarious.
stage.
Like, give each pastor a chance. Like, almost certainly they'll miss.
Yeah.
But that's the point. Like, you film it, you post the failed attempt, and now people who missed that weekend are like, what were they doing at service? Oh, they're trying to do the bottle cap challenge? That's fun. Like, people think, at least me, because I'm a complete snob, like, oh, the mannequin challenge, how passé. Like, oh, that's cute of you. But like, everyone likes this stuff.
Yeah.
So don't be like me.
But you're right. These are short-term kind of things to switch up. You're not doing the bottle cap challenge in your service for the next 6 weeks or something. Like
Don't turn it into a series.
Yeah, it's like you're doing it once, and you're not doing a different cultural thing every week, right? Like, you don't want to do a mannequin challenge last week, bottle cap this week, whatever's next week. Like, these are one-off kind of cultural moments that, like you said, could go off on Facebook, which is super fun. But if you are doing them all the time, they're just going to become routine like everything else we're already doing.
We had, as a Canadian, Ontario, very close to Toronto-based church, did a lot of like Raptors jersey giveaways
awesome.
like during our announcement section throughout their big championship run because everyone was jumping on the bandwagon and that was exciting and that brought us all together because it was a unique, unifying experience that was extra to church but was real for all of our lives throughout the week.
Sure.
So we brought that into church. Well, we've got an upcoming series in August called Vacay Mode, in which we are setting up VIP couch seats aside from the regular pews. And then during announcements, apparently we're bringing snacks to the people sitting there. I don't know how they get like selected to sit there. I'm guessing it's like...
Yeah, like at a hockey game, like you usually get, I don't know, you win like a draw.
That's what I
or
think
something.
it is. Yeah, it's like, after the second song, they're going to be like, Oh, the TD comfort seats have been
Right.
given to John Carlson.
Come on up, John.
Yeah, we're the
Yeah.
end. Everyone's clapping for John.
They played the Bob Barker music.
Come on down.
Yes, yeah, it's awesome.
And then it's like, during the second announcement, they put a bunch of Twizzlers in his hand.
Nice.
I think Twizzlers might be Canadian.
I think so too.
Licorice.
Yes.
Strawberry licorice.
Some sort of snacks. Popcorn.
Twizzlers versus Nibs. Who says no?
Nibs for me.
Licorice is trash. So. It's like the worst candy. And I'm a candy addict.
Right.
So Justin talked about the recipe for this is like to train yourself to see everything like that you see in life as creative inspiration.
Oh, yeah.
And how do
You
I
have to.
apply these things to church? So like every year, Justin and I go to one Raptors game. It's become an annual tradition of ours. This year we went to game 5.
The game of which we will not speak.
We will not speak. We the champs.
Hashtag
Forever.
we the champs. It doesn't even matter anymore.
We love you, Kawhi. It's okay.
Yeah.
We love you. Pascal's better than Paul George. Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh. Getting off course. Seriously, what was I talking
You
about?
went to a Raps game.
I went to a Raptors game. He will always be looking at the production,
Yeah.
which of course church will never be able to reach. Like we're not going to have like fireworks going off as like the pastors come out to preach. Like
Yeah.
it's Pastor Bill.
But
he's-
what are those cheerleaders doing on the
Okay,
stage?
come on. Relax. So he's looking at all the different elements and he has this Evernote and he'll make notes when we're at a Raptors game.
Yeah.
He'll make notes when we're like, at some random restaurant or like things that are not like so spectacularly over
Sure.
the top. And he's making notes. And so when he needs an idea, a fresh idea, like what can we do this upcoming like Sunday to mix things up? He'll go to this Evernote and be like,
yeah.
I remember when I saw that. You know what? We might be able to apply that in this way to this particular element of service.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I do the exact same thing that Justin does for a little bit of a different context. So I have an Evernote open for stories that I can use as, like anecdotal parables or illustrations in my sermons. I just documenting all this stuff because I would forget them all. So I document them. And then also I'm always keeping my eye open for like design elements that I really like.
Yes.
I'm always like snapping pictures of those so that when I have to do a redesign of the bulletin, hashtag still printing bulletins, like, oh, I saw something, a design element I really liked. Let me pull that up. So just storing all that stuff, making a habit of that is going to be super helpful for when you're kind of like at a loss or like.
Which is always like you
Sure.
don't need it until you need it.
Yes.
So it's like do the work before that
Yeah.
time. Other ideas that we thought of, pie at the end of service. I don't know why I included this aside from it's summer and we should all have pie. Like if church ends and there's pie in the back, you're not going to forget that Sunday because there was pie.
Right.
Do you like this idea?
I love that idea. All pies matter.
All pies matter. Muskoka Berry. Let's go. You could do a photo booth. We're having this series called Vacay Mode, and I was thinking about this hat that your wife purchased.
Yes. It's one of those big floppy hats that looks like a lampshade.
Yeah, like oversized novelty hats.
And like if it was just that hat, it's like, okay, it's trendy. It literally shades you from the sun. I get it. But she came back from the store and she turned it around. It just says vacay in this huge script font on the front. I'm like, why that one? She's like, it was Walmart. It was the only one they had. I don't know. Like,
yeah, like
so
it doesn't seem on brand for either
no,
of you.
it's not. So it's like my redemption story is being able to use this for the church service, bring it in
the photo booth.
It works with your
Redeem
sermon series. for
Illogical,
Vacay Mode.
nonsensical purchase.
Yes. Just slap that hat on the people who get the TD comfort seats on the couch.
And they think it's funny. They're like, wow, what a novelty hat that no one would actually wear.
Right.
But secretly, Rebecca's seething, knowing that her novelty hat is being now
Right.
made fun of as a prop gimmick. So that's the short term, one-off
Yeah.
ways to mix up a service. You can do this, Justin calls seasonal, medium term. So think like what you would do making changes for like a sermon series,
Yeah.
that length of time.
6-8 weeks, something like that.
Justin talked about this being like it's a temporary move, but it's not just like an engagement booster like these short-term ones that are just like, how can we
Right.
make this service, a little more fun and different than every other? These are like strategically positioned ideas to lead to a result that you want. So
Right.
what we're doing this month is during our announcements, we call it a hosting section, we're interviewing key volunteers in areas where we know we need more volunteers.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we bring them on stage and we just hey, what made you sign up to volunteer in the first place? Like, how has it been rewarding? Like, what do you like most about it? And then we point to like our single next step at the end. Hey,
Perfect.
if you want to join in this area, you can head to the, whatever in the lobby. We've been doing that this month. We're also doing a book series where like you can purchase the book and follow along with us. We'll do different stage design elements because we're a big church for different series. We just did a series called Joyrides. We, made like these really cheap, like giant letters of like JOYRIDE,
Yeah, I saw that.
spell it out. It's in the back. I was like, oh, that's different. That's unique. So you come into church and like, you didn't really spend any money on this, even though we're a big church, and you see like, oh, that's cool. Stage is a bit different. Things
Yeah.
feel a little bit more fresh.
Pastor Brian Zahn from Word of Life Church in St.
Missouri.
Joseph, Missouri. Every summer he does Finding God on your iPod. And so it's like it's similar to that like
iPod.
Yeah, so it's like it's just a good title. But hold on, I'll get back to that in a second. Similar to like Summer at the Movies. You know, like you do a sermon series like that.
Side note, we got to stop with these at the movies series.
I know, I know.
Come on.
So he does Finding God on your iPod, which is actually a sermon. He does it every summer. I think he does 4 or 6 weeks. And it's actually a sermon series that I always look forward to. I don't listen to his sermons every Sunday, but I always look forward to those ones. Just this year, he switched it to Finding God on your turntable.
Because he's like, I could go forward with technology,
What if
but
I go
I am
back?
not letting this happen
Yeah.
again. I'm not going to do iPhone and then suddenly it changes. I'm
Yeah.
going way back.
So it starts next
Smart.
week, and he does it every year. And like I just said, like from someone from a distance, it actually turns into something that people, a deviation that people get to look forward to, which can be really awesome too.
We have also written down 26 things that giving at Central goes towards. And
Okay.
so when we're talking about giving, we're not just doing it in a really scientific way. Here are the different ways that you can give. We're saying, okay, here are 26 things, so we can cycle through them twice a year over the
Yeah.
next 52 weeks. So when you give, here's how it affects
Cool.
real people's lives. And so that's something where we've written down these 26 things ahead of time, and because you're going to use them twice per year, they're never going to feel repetitive.
Yeah.
And now every single week, you talk about giving in a different way.
Yeah.
And every week, we're like, how are we going to talk about giving?
Well, and a lot of the things that your church is already giving to probably already has pieces of content, whether they're story videos, testimony videos, update videos that they would likely give to you to show during your service. It's like, let's throw to a video to watch about how we've invested in this clean water campaign. You don't even have to make that content, right? Like it's made for you. So it's a cool opportunity to switch it up and have a cool piece of content that you didn't have to make.
You can do Q&A for a series, text in your questions. In a recent episode, we talked about using social media to learn, get user data from your church
Yeah.
and apply that in different departments. Even just bringing in a social media highlight, over the course of a series and applying that to the series, because you're probably doing things on social that are the same to what
Yeah.
you're doing on Sunday. And that's a great way to tie those two things together to make them feel holistic, whereas most of the time social feels like this like independent thing that
Yeah.
the intern's in charge of. Bring that into Sunday, and that makes sermons, announcements feel unique. The point here is asking the question, what would make this series interesting and engaging for people, and how can we make it a little bit different than the series before and the series upcoming afterwards?
Awesome.
And then finally, a complete format change, long term.
This is where you swap the message for the music.
No, it is not. But Justin said it like this. He's like, can you change the Holy Grail of worship, announcements, and the message? We always talk about mission over tradition.
Yeah.
It's the ways that we've always done things. But if they are not leading to a fulfillment of our mission and vision, we need to challenge them, even if we've always done them that way,
Yeah.
especially as we live through this biggest communication shift in a half millennia. See what I did there? Not 500 years, half
Ooh,
millennia, mixing
switching
it
it
up.
up.
See? Everything's different. People are like, whoa, what a fresh podcast. I've never heard it before. So Justin's looking to address this, and Central, we're looking to address this in September. They've been getting feedback from the board, lead pastor, senior leadership, exit interviews from transitioned employees, one-off conversations. They've boiled it down to 3 things that they're hearing. Number 1, people are saying at our church, I feel like I'm observing more than participating, which makes sense, big church. Secondly, I feel like it's more performance than about connection with me, and I want to feel like I'm with family. And then finally, I feel like it's not clear for me how to belong or if I do. So Justin says we're looking to address those 3 things with 3 changes. So here are the ideas that they have for addressing those problems, because again, they're doing church like exactly how we expect to do church.
Sure.
But it's not fulfilling these 3 things. Like these are 3 problems we need to solve. So what are they doing? They're going to experiment with changing the format of service to 3 18-minute segments. The first one is a shared spiritual experience. The second is a shared family experience. The third being a shared learning experience. So for the first segment, they're going to lengthen worship from 15 to 18 minutes, which is from 3 to 4 songs. And they're going to add in, as that fourth song, a known hymn or song that like 80% of people know.
Okay.
So we at our church are always like playing like the newest and latest, worship tracks.
Sure.
And they're like, well, we want every set list to have that one song that like virtually every single person knows. And so that's one way that they're going to make people feel more like they belong, more like this is a shared experience. Oh, wow. Everyone's into this song. It's not like just the people that know it. Like the whole church is engaged here. Like, this is a moment where we're all collectively worshiping. So cool. They're also going to add in scripture reading, contemplation, sharing from other worship team members to create more opportunity to participate. That's the first segment. So it's worship. We're calling it a shared worship experience. That's what us big churches do. We name things, fancy things. That's like we know what they are. But they're introducing new elements to hopefully accomplish the things that they're missing out on. Second segment, this is normally just announcements, right? Sure. Well, how can we make it more of a shared family experience? So we've got to get that information and inspiration out with our announcements, which at our church is normally a 6 to 8 minute segment. So they're going to add another 10 minutes to make it an 18-minute segment.
That's a big jump.
It is, and they're not going to add any more announcements, obviously.
No, please don't.
This is where we can include instead of doing our testimony videos like once a quarter or twice a year, we're going to do a new one every single month.
Awesome.
We're going to celebrate people, classes, groups, and honestly, just give more face time to the people that you would never see on stage. And how, as a family, we're doing so many different things in our different departments and different verticals at church. We just need to highlight them. We just need to showcase them. It's not like they're not happening. People just don't know about them. Because if you're not involved in kids ministry, if you're not involved in a particular small group, if you're not involved in Thursday night basketball directly, you might not know. And so showcasing those things, one, makes you feel more connected. Like when, we talked about this in another episode, just showing people's pictures of their dogs on the screen. It's like, oh, Karen has a dog. I feel like I know Karen a bit better.
Nice.
It's that same idea, extending announcements into making it more collaborative. This is where baby dedications would fit in, baptism as well. And then finally, the third segment, this is the obvious, the message here, practical teaching, particularly with next steps, not so philosophical. They're going to be bringing, I think, in experts each month. We know our church wants to hear about X, Y, and Z, and we feel like maybe our senior pastor, who I'll be, is from my perspective, brilliant. Maybe he doesn't have the expertise to speak on this particular thing.
Right. If you're getting feedback that or there's a cultural moment that your church or your community is really affected by suicide. And instead of having just your pastor do a Google search on, mental health and suicide stats and put that in a pretty package to deliver on Sunday, don't be scared from bringing in outside counsel, from bringing in that expert. I think that's a great idea.
And the problem here also is we are seeing more passive spectators than we want. We want a congregation full of active participants, not passive spectators. And so we're also going to be revamping that, lobby kiosk, that central hub area that we want to be pushing people every single week to be taking next steps. And so, that's another lack that we're seeing, as almost every church is. You can always be better in this area. It's we have these great messages, but then people just leave. We want next steps being taken by 100% of our church if possible. And so how can we create a more viable central hub where it's just part of user behavior? We all know to stand and sit. We all know when the message ends, we get up and we leave. Or, during announcements, we get on our phones. We have this learned behavior. It's okay, there's this central hub. We should be taking our next steps every single week. How can we build that behavior into the culture of church?
Love it.
So many different opportunities here. Obviously, the long-term stuff is going to be more unique and specific to your church. I think the more that we can experiment in those areas, the better. And I think a church, I have to commend Central and their senior leadership in this respect for being a big church, their willingness to completely experiment. When you're a church of that size, you've gotten there because you've done things in a way that people have resonated with. Yeah. And so then for you to recognize, okay, we're still lacking in these certain areas, and then to be willing to jeopardize what you've done so well, it's that old adage of what's going to get you there isn't what got you here.
Sure.
It's one thing to know that, it's another thing to take a leap. We did that when we built Nucleus. It's okay, we're a certain company, but we want to do this. Okay, everything we learned about, making YouTube videos will not help us build enterprise software.
Yeah.
And you take a leap. And so compromising, or rather prioritizing mission over tradition. It's not always easy. That's the long-term stuff. Medium term, think sermon series changes, and then, mannequin challenges for the short term.
There you go.
Bottle cap challenges.
Yes. Next week on Pro Church Tools.
Whoa, Alex and I do.
Yeah, we're just in here kicking bottles.
Jonas is no, my studio.
That's the mic.
What ways have you mixed up elements in service to remove that predictable and stale feeling, let us know in the comments below this video on YouTube. And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Appreciate it. Could you subscribe?
And could you give us a like? Like, it really does mean the world.
Just a spare like.
Yeah.
You know, we're dying out here. Smash it!